What's up, guys? Four Corners back with another episode. I am your host, Ray. You can find me online on Twitter, or the site formerly known as such, at Rayvon Hackshaw. Joined this week, as always, by my fellow host, Peter, Bucket since '88. How is New Orleans treating you?
Very good. You know, feeling good. Nuggets are in first place. Just got my tickets. Nuggets are coming to town on Friday, so I will get to see my first action of the Nuggets in person this year.
Big game. Nuggets, Pels. It's a big in-season tournament game. Do you feel like the atmosphere is going to be different? What's the vibe like for Pels Nation right now?
Well, it's still football season, Ray. So there's the Saints, and then there's LSU,
Oh,
and then
gotcha. Okay.
maybe in January they'll like start to think about the Pelicans.
Gotcha. So we got the Saints, we got LSU, we got a little more parting to do maybe, and then we'll get to the Pels. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, Mardi
You've
Gras is
got
like
a
right after Saints season, so
okay. So maybe I should come through. I don't know. I probably can't because school, but that's okay. Joined by this week, we have a special guest, host of the Dropstep Network and Nuggets media aficionado, Rashad. What's going on?
Hello, hello. It's been a pretty busy week with work and life and trying to push out videos and stuff, but we made it through what I think has been the busiest week in the past few months, and we're on the other side. We're feeling good today.
Nice, nice. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it, and I appreciate you joining us.
Of course, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure being on this show, honestly, like truly.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad you have a good time. I'm glad we can have a good time together, joining in the joys and misery of being the ups and downs of being a fan. So let's jump right
it's
into it. I
like a
mean,
Nuggets fans therapy session, right?
Yes, there
yeah,
you go.
yeah. That's how always I felt about it. Is that like these are things they're in my heart, they're in my mind. I'm thinking about them day in and day out, and I'm like, I just need to get them out. You know. But before we get into the games themselves, I don't want to bury the lead too much. I mean, I think there's one guy in Denver who I think is probably having a good night right now as we speak, recording this live Monday, and that's Michael Malone gets a new 2-year contract. I don't think I've seen the dollar amount, but I've heard he is one of the highest paid coaches in the NBA, which I think is very appropriate. I don't really have too much to say about it, just in the sense that I think it's appropriate. But Peter, do you have any flowers for Mike? Sorry, Michael Malone.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
He did the
excited for
thing.
him. I'm excited for the team, and I'm excited for the fans because, I don't know if you guys got to see, but Josh Kroenke recently went on the DNVR show and gave those guys like an hour of just sort of insights to the team and ownership and all that stuff. And he's basically said like, we learned a lot of lessons from the Rams and the Avalanche on like how to build championship teams. And they've proven that once they've gotten to that point, that they do try to do their best to keep it together. This isn't a situation where it's like, let's buy a championship real quick and then tear everything down, because we've seen that in sports too. This has been they do try to build stuff for the long haul. So I think that they were wise to see that this team came through. Malone is worth it, and even if it's expensive, it's a top tier coach is not something that's easy to replace. So
Mhm.
as crazy as the Monty Williams contract was, just from like a dollar amount, I don't think he's a bad coach. But just the amount of money he got relative to what coaches were getting paid was like, whoa, this is like a new ball game. I was immediately worried when I saw that contract. I was like, I don't think the Nuggets are going to pay these kind of prices. But if that's the new marketplace and you want to win, you got to pay to play. And I'm proud of the Nuggets ownership for putting their money where their mouth is on this one.
Yeah, I think that's it's really fair. I mean, he has the results. He's done everything that has been expected of him, so I
Can't
think he
argue.
deserves to be compensated appropriately. Rashad. So, I mean, speaking of some of the best coaches in the NBA, I mean, I think it's interesting because he's so new. You know, he's not one of the more. I mean, I think since I've been a child, really, there have been some names that have been just staples in NBA coaching circles, from Pop to guys like Eric Spoelstra, etc. Mike Malone being a little bit newer into that conversation, how do you see him in where he is stepping? Let me put it this way: where do you see his career trajectory? Because obviously he's so early compared to those guys, but how do you see his career trajectory going into, I don't know, the next decade, the future, and just where he's starting from in comparing to where it's going? Yeah.
Um, so I guess I'll preface all this by saying that I used to be one of the, hey, Malone needs to GTFO
You were a
out
fire
of the.
Maloner?
I
Oh
was a
no!
fire Maloner. I know.
Hey,
It's
he said
something I've lived
was.
with.
Okay.
I was, yes. I have since changed my ways, but I just think like in terms of career trajectory, like you're looking at some of the top coaches in the league right now: Greg Popovich, Monty Williams, Eric Spoelstra. Like I don't think we're going to be talking about Malone as like a top 10, top 15 type coach of all time, but I think in terms
Hmm.
of effectiveness, you're looking at like a Rick Carlisle type of thing. Probably a couple more championships here and there. He's got his thing. Rick Carlisle was offense. Michael Malone really loves his defense. Like I just think those two in particular have pretty similar traits. And Rick Carlisle got his championship too. Michael Malone's got his now, and I see a lot of Rick Carlisle type trajectory from Malone.
Okay. I have to ask. So, what was the turning point for you? Where did you where was the transfer point from the fire Malone train to the love Malone train?
I'll say last season a lot of my problems with him came with Christian Brown minutes because I was a really big like play the man 15, 20 minutes, let him get those developmental minutes and let's get those
Hmm.
early. But um I think what was the turning point? It happened like toward the middle of last season. It was pretty recent. It was not 2 seasons ago that I changed, but I think it was just I think how he started utilizing the bench in terms of like switching to switch all defense with the bench and realizing like it was a lot of internalization and reflection on my part because a lot of it was just really I will say I was pretty irrational with my Fire Malone stuff. Um, but just
Okay.
seeing how he
I've
evolved
had
as
my own
a
criticisms as well. So,
right, seeing him evolve with the rage timeouts as the season went on, and seeing him trust the younger guys a little bit more, and seeing him leave guys out there that have made mistakes during the games, like seeing those types of changes in a coach that I thought was insanely stubborn before, really did do a lot to change my mind.
I'm not gonna lie, I have my own things to add. But Peter, do you have any thoughts about like the Malone growth trajectory?
Well, yeah. So I wanna kind of address like just the general fan who was a fire Maloner. Um, there's different ways to go about building teams and coaching teams, and some is like play the best guys right now to get the quick results. And this isn't a perfect analogy, but like the way I was taught high school basketball was I played in a system where you you learned your teammates as best as you could, and if you were really good you played, and if you were good enough to start a grade above you, you moved up. But if you weren't good enough to start, you stayed at that level even if you were a better player than like the sixth man on like varsity or something. So what that taught us is like continuity. And the example I'm trying to lead this to is, if you guys remember 2, 3 years ago, there was a lot of fans who were really frustrated with how quick he would pull Michael Porter Jr. And as a Porter Jr. fan, I also was sometimes frustrated that he wouldn't let him play through it.
Mhm.
However, he was teaching Mike, and it was more important for Malone to be like, I need you to get to this level in all these other
Mhm.
areas before I can trust you. And I think we have to say that that has been proven to work with Michael Porter. And so I totally respect his style and see what he's doing. And I think sometimes as fans, it's very hard to trust a guy in his method when he hasn't been to the mountaintop before. So I think now that he has, it should be pretty much a no-brainer for everybody to be like, let's trust this guy with what he's doing, because I do. And you're still going to have bad games here and there, but the people that were like getting mad at Malone last night for the rocket sauce, I'm just like, you either just forgot everything or aren't paying attention, because it's like the NBA's 82 game season, man. Like, you're going to lose a lot of games.
Mhm.
At least 10 games. They're going to lose at least 10
At
games. I mean,
least.
come on. But no, I
Ray,
would, I
still
would
holding
add to
out
that
hope
and
for
say,
the
I really am. I know. Look,
still holding out hope for the 60, 64 and 8 finish.
It's going to be tough without Jamal in this stretch. A big part of my 70 win projection was just being largely healthy throughout the season, and not having. I think Jamal specifically, it limits the team in certain ways that they haven't. They're going to struggle, I think, to account for. But I'm not writing it off. Still not writing it off. Okay. Anyway, but we can get to that in a bit. We can get the impacts of not having Jamal in a bit. With Malone,
Wait,
I
time out,
too
Ray.
have.
I just got to say this real quick on that point. I just got to say
Okay.
real quick, because I know you're big on the like chasing 70 wins. It's not that I don't believe in the Nuggets. The league is just too talented now. Like, if you go back and look at that Dallas Mavericks team that won like 64 games, like that wouldn't be
Hmm.
like a top 4 team in the NBA today, in my opinion. I mean, I know that
I
team lost in
agree.
the first round of the Warriors anyway, but my point is like the Nuggets just like look at Houston like last night. That team was not
Hmm.
projected to make the playoffs. They got talent. Like there's just so
Okay.
much more talent in the league now. I
In the
don't think we're
West,
going to see a 70 win team like in this decade.
I think the East sucks. I'll say it. I think the East is
That's fine.
trash. I'm gonna be honest. I think the East, the third seed in the East is gonna have like 50 wins, and like the eighth seed in the West is gonna have 50 wins. That's how I feel. That's my theory of the case. That's just a theory. It's just a hypothesis. I could be wrong, and when I'm wrong, I will come back on the show and say, Peter, I was wrong. I was wrong about look. I
Well,
was
and the
wrong about
Nuggets
Bol
mostly
Bol.
play the West, so that hurts you.
No, I still think they're going to be best team in the West. They're just going to be the best team in the best conference.
Well, yeah. No, I agree with you. Okay.
We'll see. We'll see. I'm just not writing it off. Anyway, uh, but I
Okay.
was I was a little bit frustrated with the way Malone would integrate younger players into the roster, for I think a lot of the reasons both of you guys have mentioned. Not even. I think Michael Porter is almost like the culmination of a lot of prior lessons, even. Guys like Wancho, guys like Malik Beasley, guys like Jared Vanderbilt, guys like Bol, Bones Highland, and all these other examples. I think it took those guys being stepping stones, because I feel like he really perfected that balance of he did hold people accountable. He holds Michael Porter accountable, but at the same
Mhm.
time, I feel the love there. Like I feel
Mhm.
the stick with itness, that he's earned. And because he's earned it, I feel like it just means a lot more than it would have otherwise. And unfortunately, Michael Porter, I think, is the highest leverage example of all of those cases. Like the fact that Malik Beasley didn't work out in Denver exactly. Yeah, I was a little frustrated at the time. Yeah, I was a little frustrated we didn't move on from him when we could have if we weren't going to kind of keep him. Sure. But Michael Porter is a max player, and Malik Beasley is kind of a guy. Wancho is not in the league. Bones is not playing right now. Bol I don't think he's playing
Bol
right now.
Bol.
Yeah,
He's not
so
playing. No.
He's
I thought
only
he
on the
might
roster
until
because he's 7-2.
he's good at. Okay, I will say he's still talented. Okay, I'm not gonna write him off as he's good at basketball. He's not working very hard
He doesn't think the
in
game.
the in doing the
Yeah, I don't think
doing
he's
the little
bought into
things.
Doesn't
NBA
work hard at
basketball
all.
yet.
Yeah.
He's into the lifestyle.
I mean, to the extent that he has worked hard, I think it's on specific things. Like, I think he's worked hard on his three looks good. Like, he's worked hard on that. I think, like, for a guy who's 7'2", sure. Like, he's worked on his handle. That's great. But there are so many other parts of the game that he has holes in that I think are really what hold him back in terms of the reason why he's not Wemby, right? Um, in fact, I actually want to do a little bit of a shout out. Rashad actually did a little bit of a comparison video, not to Bol Bol, but to Chet Holmgren and Victor Wembanyama and some of their details. And a lot of the things that those two do well are a lot of are filling the gaps that I think Bol Bol lacks. And even so, it's an interesting topic to me because, and I think I've said this before, but I do have this faith that like the future of the NBA is more and more 7 footers, not just at the center position, but playing power forward, playing small forward, playing point guard, playing shooting
Larry
guard.
Markkinen, 7 footer
One
at small
day
forward.
it's gonna be like that Futurama episode where everybody just like 7 feet tall, 7 footers just on the court. It's gonna be great, and you'll have heard it here first.
What's your dream?
Yeah. So yeah, so all that is to say, Michael Malone, I appreciate you. I'm glad we didn't fire you. I'm not saying it was all
Yeah.
roses all the time, but I'm glad we stuck with it. That's all. I'm gonna leave it at that. Um,
A
actually, want to
bumpy
talk
road,
about a
but we
little.
made it there.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. To get a little bit into, I guess, the games of the past week. I mean, I want to start in New Orleans. It was the furthest from the disappointment, one of the very firm, solid win. And I mean, Peter, I kind of want to give you the floor, being our resident. What do you call, if a Marylander is a Marylander and a Denverite is a Denverite? What is a New Orleansian?
A New Orleans, I guess.
New Orleans.
Um, yeah. Um, so the Pelicans were on absolute fire in the first half in this game. Um, the kid they drafted this year in the first round, Jordan Hawkins from UConn, he can
Boy.
absolutely
Light it
he
up.
like it's actually really cool to see like rookies that like what the idea was, and then it actually pops like right away. Like he shooting is something that if you can get the shot off, that should always translate, right? So he's got a beautiful shot. He was, they were finding him early and he was hitting it. And then the Nuggets started to make a small little run towards the end of the second quarter to kind of cut it to like within a reasonable amount. Because I think the Pelicans were up by as much as 20 in the second quarter. And then it was like 13-point game at halftime. And that's when Jokic just decided like enough screwing around. Like he went into MVP mode because he was like playing harder than everybody on the floor. Poor Valanciunas was like holding his ground as best he could and still just getting absolutely dominated. Like nothing he could do to stop him. And Nuggets also got a big performance from Julian Strother in the second half. He was kind of coming out and being like, wait, you're not the only rookie in this game. And he started hitting a bunch of threes and getting confident and, getting the crowd into it. And I mean, it was fun to watch. It was a weird game because I don't know how seriously the Nuggets took it at the beginning. Some of it was hot shooting, but I think some of it was just like, this is the regular season. A lot of regular season games just have like weird feels because I think both teams in the first quarter just kind of come out and like don't know how the game's going to go. They just like feel it out. And like once the Nuggets were down by 20, they're like, oh crap, this is embarrassing. Like we need to play harder.
A little bit, yeah. I feel like I was never. I don't want to be cocky, but that game was never in doubt to me. I'm not gonna lie. Like watching him shoot, like the hot shooting that New Orleans displayed to me in that first half, it was unreal. Like the Nuggets were playing great defense. KCP was playing great defense. Also, I also want to shout out 7 assists for KCP that game. Like not a game high, but
Wow.
second on the team next to Jokic, and an absence of Jamal Murray. I feel like that's big. I just feel like that can't continue forever. It's one of those things.
Right.
For the some reason, teams let Aaron Gordon shoot and let Zeke Naji shoot. I was willing to take those bets. I'm not gonna lie. And unfortunately for Denver, it did end up bouncing out a little bit. The shooting splits did even out a little bit more in the second half. Um, but yeah, Rashad, is anyone? I mean, anyone in this New Orleans game, or even anyone this week, who you specifically feel like deserve just like a little bit more shine, a little bit more credit?
I think Reggie Jackson has been a very pleasant surprise for a lot of people in Nuggets Nation. For me specifically, because last season I remember I was when we did end up signing him after the buyout, I was like, oh, I just watched Reggie Jackson in LA be like not that good. I'm a little worried about
Hmm.
this. And then rest of the year, playoffs didn't really pan out, but seeing him like defensively, I think is the biggest thing for me. Coming in scoring like we expected Reggie Jackson to be able to fill at least some of what Jamal was leaving in the scoring department, but defensively as a point of attack defender, as a screen navigator, seeing him like really give a lot of effort and being paired with KCP when it comes to screen and perimeter defense, I think it's been a real joy to watch, and it's been making me really happy because he's stepping up, and this is exactly why they signed him, and he's filling out his role.
Yeah, he's
You
not been
know,
toxic. Go ahead, Peter.
you know what I really like? What I've really liked about Reggie Jackson, guys. Um, it's been a while since we've had a guard that can blow by his man. Like when he does that, he'll do like the pick and roll with Jokic on the right side, and then he does the freeze, like because everyone's
Hmm.
expecting to bounce back, and he'd be like, "Oh, you're not in front of me. You're halfway. Well, I'm just gonna go right by you and lay it up." Like I
Hmm.
love it. It's been so frustrating all these years watching like Nuggets get blown by on defense, and then like we have Jamal Murray, who's like I love Jamal, but he's very more like I'm gonna give you 7 moves and then
Methodical.
hit you with a turnaround step back.
Okay.
I guess the only guy that really got in the paint recently was like Faku, who can't finish.
I was
So
gonna say
it's
Austin
just been
Rivers,
cool to be
but
like, oh, no, 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 no. Austin does not have the gear
Austin
Reggie does.
Rivers.
I'm sorry.
he's not
So
as
it's been
fast.
cool
But
to
he
see
has a
Reggie
good
just get
handle.
like,
He's quick. I don't know why I'm defending Austin Rivers right
Austin,
now.
like, he was better when he made quick decisions, and he made quick decisions like 1 out of every 10 times he touched the ball. So Reggie's actually been pretty decisive, like more than I expected. But you know
Mhm.
what's crazy, guys? Like being in the chat during the games, so many Nuggets fans still think that Reggie Jackson, like the ball sticks a lot. And that's like how spoiled we've gotten because it does stick with him more than like the average Nuggets player. But go watch some other games. Telling you guys, like the Reggie Jackson has been doing a good job of being decisive and moving the basketball. He's the point guard.
Mhm.
You're supposed to have the point guard. When Monte was here, I thought he did a good job of finding the bounce, but he still had the ball a lot. But you go watch some other games, like you watch like LaMelo Ball on Charlotte or something. He's got the ball like 90% of the possession.
Yeah, he's definitely bought in. And that's very. It's a deep relief to know that maybe his shooting numbers are going to go up and down throughout the season. I'm not going to hold him to that expectation that he's always going to be this elite scorer. But knowing that he's bought in, I think is going to create a floor for him defensively on the boards as a passer and just a guy who's just going to work within the offense. I think that is going to just let him be capable and usable and playable uh, throughout the year without me pulling the rest of my hair out. So um, that's been nice. I mean, I'm pretty It was pretty nice to see, and yeah, I don't know. This was at this point. I'm still in my the honeymoon phase of like, yeah, the Nuggets still really damn good. So, and then they kind of transitioned to Golden State, which is I feel like is one of the bigger. I mean, I know Golden State not the best team in the league last year, but I think just by reputation and by expectation, just kind of a more of a marquee game for Denver. And I feel like they really elevated to the occasion. I think especially defensively, I feel like um, Steph Curry just not to say that he didn't get his because it's Steph Curry and he's always going to get his to some extent, but I felt like Denver really made him work and I feel like that almost makes all the difference when you're talking about a team like that. So Rashad, I'll throw it to you. I mean, do you have any just points of emphasis, thoughts, takeaways from that game in particular?
I like you mentioned, like getting Steph Curry out of his usual offensive flow, especially off ball, is probably the most important thing you can do against that Warriors team because, like, yeah, Draymond is the I would say the primary playmaker. Chris Paul's the primary playmaker, but that offense runs through Steph. He is their engine, and KCP did a really good job. I think cutting off a lot of clean angles for Steph coming off of off ball screens and really forcing him to, I think, work more than probably what Steph even wanted to. Like, we know Steph runs around the court all the time, but I think KCP did a good enough job of being on his ass enough and making him run even more. And I think that ended up translating a lot into some bad shots in the middle. Like, he ended up, I think he didn't make a single shot inside the 3-point line, or he might have made one in that game. And a lot of that was due to the pressure that he got on the perimeter and how well people were sticking to him around those screens. And I think if that is able to be replicated for the 3 or 4 times that we see them, I'm looking at a series sweep. I know that's a little ahead of ourselves, but I think they showed a lot of good things defensively against Steph that really make me happy.
Can I just like mentally live in the headspace where the Nuggets are sweeping the Warriors for
Oh
like
yes,
five
please.
seconds?
I'm here. I'm here. I am here.
That would be nice.
I feel like
I would
I feel like
really
Steph would
appreciate
go
that.
off at least once on us.
And Steph
But
can go off. That's the rest of the team. Just the offensive production isn't there for the Warriors as a whole, and the defense is not what it used to be in terms of being top 10, top 5. Like, there are a lot of holes in this defense. Their bench can't score, and it's a lot of problems this year. I think
yeah.
it's a really different series matchup this season than what it has been in the past few years between these two.
Oh yeah.
Especially with
Yeah,
the
Clay's
Chris
definitely
Paul
lost some
addition.
juice.
Yeah,
Chris
Clay.
Paul, I
Oh
mean, yeah,
boy.
he's running the bench unit, but yeah, he hasn't been shooting it well. And then you're like you said, their bench can't really score, and Wiggins has kind of lost his game. He was so big for them in that finals run a
Mm-hmm.
couple years ago. He's really struggling. But no, the main thing that stood out from this game for me, Rashad, you already mentioned it. I thought KCP was outstanding. I thought that
Mm-hmm.
was. This may sound like hyperbole. I think that might be the best game he's played in a Nuggets uniform. Like, that game is right up there with the game that he scored 18 in the first quarter in Phoenix in Game 6. But like, guys, here's the difference, right? You guys can know a great defender, a guy that's like really quick laterally and like has good instincts and stuff. There's still a big difference between that and then actually like scouting your opponent and knowing exactly what you have to do and where to be. Because if you just walk into a gym and you've never seen a guy play, you can be an elite defender and still get cooked all game long because you don't know what's coming. But with Steph, KCP did such a good job of getting up on him, being in his space, and guarding him like 30 feet out to the basket, and then forcing him to drive and not get clean looks. There was a really great clip. I forgot who posted it on Twitter of like, there was a play where he was hugging him so tight that Steph cut back door, and Jokic saw it off ball, got in the way, and Steph was like, he beat KCP by like a half step towards the basket, but Jokic was there to defend that lane, and Steph was like, man, like basically was like, most of the time I would get that cut. So just the Nuggets as a whole did a great job of knowing where he was at all times, and that's what's so important is like he's like the head of the snake, right? He's so good, but if you do a good job on him, you have a much better chance of slowing them down as a whole. And I really think it all started with KCP.
For sure, and I had to look this stat up because Rashad, you mentioned it in your latest YouTube video, but KCP went like 38% from the field, 0 for
Oh yeah,
3 from
offensively,
3,
not there. Not there.
team high plus 13,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like that is just
Yep.
like the marker of just an elite defensive effort. It's just one of those things is that like on a basketball court you only have so much energy. And I think, I
Mm-hmm.
might come back to this point a
Yeah.
little bit with the next game that we talk about, but you only have so much energy and you've got to spend it somewhere. And I think KCP locked in such a strong way and understanding, to your point as well, Peter, on like what is important to slowing down the Warriors. If KCP had scored 5 more points or 10 more points, but Steph drops 20 more points, hey,
Right.
it really doesn't matter. Like the real
Right.
difference in this
He
game was
approached that
absolutely that.
basketball game as, what do I need to do so that to help my team win, right? If you would have taken KCP off the Nuggets that night and given us Trae Young, is it the same result? Probably a completely different ballgame, right? But Trae Young would not have had the mentality of like, I got to stick with Steph Curry all night.
Right, right. So I want to give him like all his flowers because I think defense is one of those things, especially for guards. It's one of the least glamorous things in the NBA, especially with the way the rules are, in the way that perimeter players are so catered to offensively, and in the way that most people, I think, watching the game aren't as to the untrained eye, or whatever it might be, aren't looking for those details. So a lot like I'll make our weekly NFL analogy. It's like offensive line play. If it's going well, you're not going to be paying attention to it. So shout out to him.
Right.
Shout out to the Nuggets for winning that game, and hopefully, if they do, meet in the playoffs, I think it's a sign of things to come in the future. Especially because Jamal will be back, and if they get Draymond back and we get Jamal back, I feel like one of those guys is going to make a bigger impact than the other. Just me. I don't know. Relative to who's going to be guarding who and, all that sort of thing. So I want to shift gears a little bit to the Houston Rockets, the new Houston Rockets. I feel like they are no longer a trash team. They've made some additions. They've brought in some actual NBA veterans and brought in a new coach and really changed their culture around a lot because it seems like they're streaking a little bit. Closing out their homestand against the Denver Nuggets with a 107-104 victory. I gotta say, when I first it felt bad. It felt bad on its face. But taking a little bit of a step back, taking a deep breath, looking at how well they're playing against other teams and who else they've beaten, I'm a little more okay with it. It could be worse. But Peter, I'll throw it to you on a scale of 1 to 10. How bad of a loss do you feel like this was?
Well, 10 being a 5 along, 10 being
10
like
being
a fire.
like 10 being losing a 3-1 lead in the playoffs and 1 being a win. I don't know. A 1
Yeah, I mean,
a 1 being
low,
like
like a
losing a
2 or a
preseason game.
3. No, I'm just not worried. Like, it was, I thought the Rockets played well. I thought the Nuggets could have played better. I thought this game was like the first game that really showed the absence of Jamal Murray because as great as Jokic is, we've seen what a Jokic ceiling team is, right? Meaning like the team that beat Portland in the playoffs without Murray and then got swept by the Suns. Like, that's how incredible Jokic is. He can still win you a playoff series. But then you have nights like this where if you guys were watching what the Rockets were doing is they had Sengun guard Jokic one-on-one, and they basically never helped. They're just like, why would we help? Because this guy's mostly just going to kill us with twos. And that's kind of what happened. Like, as great as Jokic's stat line is, I think he finished 50% from the field, which is great for an average NBA player. And for Jokic, it's well below his average, which is like insane to think about, right? So it's like technically he still had a bad game with 36, 21, and 11.
I just want to say,
but the rest of the
he did
Nuggets
go
just,
8 for 8
other
from the
than
line.
Mike, just didn't really have the offense. No, he did. Like, I'm not putting this on Jokic. That's not my point.
No,
It's just like the Rockets.
I just want to shout him
like,
out
hey,
for that, just because
who else is gonna?
he's been struggling.
Yeah. So and then I thought Van Vliet cooked us all night. I thought that the Rockets had a chance to be competent this year, but I'm a little, alarmed at how quickly they've built the chemistry, right? So I think, ball knowers, as we like to say, have known for a while how good Alperen Sengun is. So it's kind of cool to see him build that chemistry with Van Vliet so quickly, because I think Van Vliet's always been kind of like I I don't know what the word is, but like some people really like his game and other people are like, oh, he's overrated. And I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
he's a winner, man. You know, like he literally won a ring and he played great in those finals. So maybe he's not a max level point guard, but if you went from being a shit team, he can get you from being there to being a competent team. And that's what he did. And he played well, and the Rockets hit their shots. You know, Jeff Green got hot, and the Nuggets bench had a rough night. And what happened?
Mm-hmm.
Nuggets lost by 2 possessions. So not worried, because you lose a road game by 2 possessions to a team that's 6-3. I don't think the Nuggets lost much sleep that night.
That's
I
fair.
hear that.
I don't know. I didn't love it. Like, I still don't love losing games, and this does put this puts a damper in my like 70-win season projections. But hey, it could be worse. Rashad, I'll ask you this: how does it bother you that it was Jeff?
Yes, yes, it does. Because Jeff Green, I appreciate your time with the Nuggets.
We lost
I
to
really
the ball
do.
spot.
We lost to the damn bald spot. We lost to a Jeff Green that was rebounding, that was defending multiple positions, that was hitting threes. Like, it was the most infuriating part of this game by far. I'm glad that the Rockets are good. I made a video about them and their comparisons with the Nuggets over the summer. I think they have a really good chance to be special and maybe make the play-in this year. Didn't think Jeff would be the reason why. I didn't think Jeff 15 points would happen.
I'm with you. It hurt my feelings. That's all I'm saying. Just because I know 85% of the time that's not who he is. You know, he's not
Right.
getting those rebounds. He's not playing that defense.
Team high
He's not
plus
getting those
14, by the
buckets.
way.
Oh boy, I just feel like
Wait,
we
Ray, I have to ask you. You think Jeff had this game circled on the calendar? Or is this just random?
yeah, I think he did. I think obviously anytime you have you got a team who lets you go for somebody else, for somebody else's or whatever. It's just like an ex. Like, somebody
Right.
breaks up with you to be with somebody else, you see him in this. Imagine, you're at the basketball court and your ex's guy is there. I would cook him. I would try to cook him. I'm not gonna lie. Um, Not
All right.
because I hate him, but because it's just
It just is what it
is
is.
what it is. It is what it is. So I
Ray,
don't
you seem
blame
like
him
you're
for.
playing a little harder today. No, what are you talking about? I always play this hard.
I mean, I just want to say I always play hard on the basketball court. Anyone who's played basketball has never said I'm lazy on the basketball court. But that being said, I do have to say, when Jeff Green locks in, he is a really good player. And
Mhm.
at 37, look, I'm 29. I understand the the difficulty of locking in as frequently as when you're 22, 23, 24 years old. So there is a difference there. I feel that and I respect that. And I'm happy for him that he is finding success, because I also saw his photo at Media Day and it did not look
Oh man, he looks
joyful.
so sad.
Yeah, it did not. It was not good vibes. I don't know if he doesn't like the
Uncle
food
Jeff
in
still helped bring us
Houston
a ring,
or.
so I'm thankful for Jeff.
Yeah. It's all good. I'm not mad. I hope we get them back. Next time I hope we get them back,
We will.
and I hope
For sure.
let's talk. Let's revisit this subject in Game 65. You know what I'm saying? As far as his
I'm
effort
down.
levels. That's about it. I'm not too upset. Shout out to Houston for being another good team in the West. I think that is just also just really impressive to me in general, that they've realized that, hey, we weren't moving in the right direction. They made the adjustments that they needed to, and they're putting together a competent, organization out there.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, do you guys want to take a quick break and we'll come right back?
Sounds
I'm
good.
good.
Cool. And we'll see you in a second. Let's see. And we are back. So, before we let off of Nuggets games specifically, I kind of want to talk about, and especially that Rockets game. So, it was the return of the bad bench. The bad bench is back, guys. Reggie Jackson in the starting lineup kind of feels like it has been a bit of a tipping point for them. Rashad, I kind of want to throw it to you. How are you feeling about it in general? I mean, are you concerned? Do you feel like this is going to be an ongoing trend? Do you feel like there is something the Nuggets can do, should do, so on? Anything you want to say on it?
Um, it's man, the second unit is just so it's built so specifically in that it's primarily defenders that are coming off the bench playing for the Nuggets, and you really, really, really need an above average / elite scorer to go along with them to make that work. I think I was not surprised by the lack of offense. I was disappointed by it. I'm disappointed by the fact that CB, Strother, and Peyton Watson all went 0 for 8 combined off the bench in the game against the Rockets. And I'm upset that the offense hasn't looked really good, but it hasn't surprised me at all. Like, I knew CB is not going to be your offensive threat coming off the bench. Peyton Watson is still raw. He's still young. He barely played last season. Zeke Naji is going through some things right now. I don't think Zeke Naji has been having a really good season at all. And I said this in a video not too long ago. Like, you're putting a lot of extra pressure on a lot of young guys who aren't as experienced to step up ahead of their progression schedule. And the team is still 8-2. Like, the starters are carrying this team right now, but when you look long term and you look toward the rest of the season, and as you know, people take rest games and injuries maybe pile up at certain points in the year, like you're looking at 20, 21, 22-year-olds to come step up, and right now it's been a little disappointing so far, the lack of production overall.
That's fair. I mean, I think with Zeke in particular, it's tough because I don't know what I don't put it entirely on him being untalented because I feel like he's had a lot of change in his
Mm-hmm.
career. He came into the league as a power forward. There was a period where Denver was, maybe you could play small forward, and he explored his game, and it didn't go well. And then he went back to the four, and then we needed a center, and we've kind of encouraged him to bulk up a lot and sort of change his shot and become more of a post presence and try to navigate the NBA as a modern small ball five, which I think it also comes with its own set of challenges. In the same way that being a true big requires a lot of physicality, rebounding, screen setting, those sorts of things that he might have struggled with. I think being a small ball five, I think about some of the best small ball fives in the league. Those are guys who have good hands, who are good passers, who are good shooters, who can, create a little bit for themselves and for other people. And I just think it's a lot to ask of him. At the same time, he's not doing any of it, really.
No.
I respect the hustle. He's hustling. He's working so hard. And so I don't want to take any of that away from him. But I think, and I alluded to this a little bit earlier, not having Jamal with that bench unit and
Mm-hmm.
not having Reggie Jackson with that bench unit really feels like it exposes, in my mind, exposes him most of all, in the sense that when you have a Colin out there and you don't have that isolation score, Colin, I think, really needs a lot like Monte Morris. I think Monte Morris benefited a lot from having Mason Plumlee. Not that Mason Plumlee is this elite player, but they created together.
Mm-hmm.
They were a great duo, a great pick and roll duo because of their overlapping skill sets. And I think with Colin and Zeke, it really just doesn't feel like. I'm sorry, I hate Zeke screens. Like maybe
Hmm.
maybe I'll focus on this in like a video or something like that. But Zeke sets screens a lot with his hands, and it's really not something I would, if I were to show someone how you set it. You don't use your hands. You use your body usually. Even guards, a lot of Jamal's a great screen setter. There are a
Hmm.
lot of guys in the league at varying sizes who aren't 6'8", 6'10", 6'11", who aren't, who can do it. It's just I don't think it's something that's clicking for him right now. Um, but it's learnable. So I'm hoping that they can figure it out. It's kind of, I think it would do the most for that bench unit. But I mean, Peter, I know he's not the only person on the bench. I mean, what were your thoughts? I mean, I'm sure you weren't excited watching that bench unit, but I'm sure you're not focusing on it too much in the sense that we are 8-2. The Nuggets are 8-2, so it's not the end of the world. Um, but what are some of your takeaways just from watching that Rockets game and really the bench unit throughout the early season portion?
Yeah, so I think even though he's gotten the least amount of run this year of the three, between Brown, Watson, and Strother, the three wing players, Strother is the guy I trust the most offensively. Like because he knows who he is. He knows that he's gonna cut off hard off a curl, and if he's open, he catches it. He's firing that thing up. And if he's not, and somebody's trailing, he can drive and either kick or go with a floater. With Watson, I feel like he's very unsure of himself on offense, and like he's not. He doesn't have a bad handle. It's not elite. I would actually say it's fine, but he often is like so good at like getting into the lane and then he just doesn't know what to do. And he's not super confident in a shot. And then with Christian, his shot just isn't falling at all right now. So
No.
I think the key for him is like just get in the gym and keep shooting hundreds of threes every day, because once his three starts going in at a respectable clip, that will open up people closing out hard on him and the driving lanes, because he really has noticeably improved his handle. I know he was like the
Hmm.
talk of camp or whatever. I'm always skeptical when like coaches say like, oh, this guy, watch out. Like I really didn't believe it with Christian, and I'm not going to say he's blown me away, but he does look significantly better last year with the basketball. It hasn't translated to like full impact. He's been up and down. And then with Zeke, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. But I really just think that Zeke is not a guy that can lift, a bunch of bench players. He kind of does need better talent around him to be effective. And I just wish that Malone would like stagger more while Jamal's out. He did in the second half. If you guys noticed, he kind of had to do that with Mike. I think he has to do that going forward, guys. I think he has to be like, hey, let's get Christian and Peyton and maybe even Zeke to play with Jokic and with Reggie, in an offense where you can kind of just fit in around Jokic.
I have something to say about that because that's a really good point. There was a lineup that they ran. Oh, God, I cannot remember what game it was in. But there was a lineup on the floor of Jokic, KCP, Peyton Watson, um, Julian, and I believe Reggie Jackson. And that lineup, for the low amount of
Against
minutes
the
that they played
Pelicans.
together, yeah. That lineup was producing. And they only played like I think 5 or 6 minutes together in that game,
Mm-hmm.
but what they showed on both ends of the floor, and not having a traditional point guard, because you do have Jokic on the floor and you have him facilitating for these younger guys who can't really do it for themselves right now. And Reggie Jackson, like, he's a good scorer, but you don't want him to be your primary. And having him with Jokic and the defensive weapons in that lineup was, I think that's a bright spot that they can look forward to and hopefully utilize a lot more as the season goes on, because that was a really good lineup.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I feel like Zeke can supplement. Zeke's been really good at the four. I think a lot of Zeke's best minutes can be at the 4 if you're looking
next to
to
Jokic.
move Aaron and Mike into those sort of bench stagger minutes, especially because they don't really have. I was thinking about this earlier. Like, what if they played DeAndre? I think he sets better screens than Colin, but I also feel like it presents different issues for you. You might be solving one problem and introducing
And then you can't
2 or
switch
3
no
more.
more. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't. You can switch even less because I think
Hmm.
even introducing Colin, it's really reduced their ability
Yeah.
to
Hmm.
switch screens and for him to chase guys around screens. He's not KCP. He's not even Reggie Jackson in terms of the length and the
Hmm.
switchability. So I think as much as I've always been hesitant to be a staggering fixes everything guy, I think for the Nuggets in their current position and how the team is constructed right now, playing Jokic a bit more with Peyton, with Zeke, with some of those other guys, and in letting Mike cook off the bench, letting Aaron cook off the bench because they can create for themselves a little bit more. They can create
Hmm.
for others a little bit more. I think that might be the most effective way to move forward, especially while Jamal's out. Also, though, I'm kind of interested in. I don't think it's early enough to fairly make a lot of rotation changes right now, like wholesale.
Hmm.
But Hunter Tyson is a guy who I feel like offensively, I think just kind of can pull a Vlatko impression in terms of just fitting in, being a guy who maybe also isn't going to go 0 for whatever from the field consistently, who can not even on ball all the time, but even off ball, which I think can be just as valuable as long as you've got somebody paying attention, especially if it's a guy like Colin, or even maybe we get Bodie Ball at some point. We'll see. I think that's an option that they can go to, but I think the biggest impact, right, because these are the guys that play the most minutes, are going to have to come from Michael Porter, are going to have to come from Aaron Gordon. And I think as a whole, my hope for the team is just like shoot with more confidence. For Christian, for Zeke, for Peyton, for honestly, Mike shoots with plenty of confidence. No, he's fine. But Aaron Gordon, I think in particular, because teams are leaving him open a lot, and that's just like the option they're picking. They're picking their poison. So I mean, I just hope they, yeah, get comfortable shooting those threes because I think those are going to be the things that guys leave open for them throughout the season. And if they do that, I think they're going to be fine. Honestly, that this might not be the end all be all of where the bench ends. It's game 10, and we've got 72 more. So I think there's a lot of room for that unit to improve, and they're not going to be consistently minus 15s. So at least that's my hope. That's my hope. That's where my heart is. um, do you
I
guys
got a
want
question for you
Peter?
guys.
Yeah, sure.
Just real quick. I know we were talking about the bench, but when you're missing Jamal, you're missing 20 and 8. Do you guys want Aaron Gordon to be a little more aggressive at all during this time, or do you like the fact that he's basically
Mm.
like staying at his water level of like, I'm not going to play outside my game. I'm going to stick to this great role that I'm at, and I'm just going to keep doing that.
I think that's a lineup issue because what we saw in the playoffs last year when they were running Aaron Gordon as the backup 5 with that backup unit, I think that that opened up the game for him to be able to be that creator, to be able to take advantage of mismatches and I think operate really well as a screener, really well as a passer for a lot of the other guys in that second unit. And you'd the problem with AG as like a more aggressive creator is the lack of a jumper. And it just takes away so many different
Yeah.
opportunities for him in terms of like creating advantages for other people. Because the way he does it now is by bully balling into the paint, collapsing 2, and then hopefully kicking out to whoever is the open shooter on the perimeter. The problem with that now, if you're putting him with the bench, is that he ain't got no shooters to shoot when he passes the ball. So it's like a lot of his minutes are run with Jokic, and he has that role with Jokic. He knows what to do. He knows to be the screener. He knows to sit in the dunker spot. That's his role. And until we get I think stronger shooting in the bench unit and more minutes with AG as a 5 in general with the bench, that's when we're going to see a lot more aggressiveness. I want to see it for sure. I want to see AG in this time getting up to like 18 points a game because we know Aaron Gord can score the basketball. It's just a matter of him like being able to or willing to step outside of his normal role for this time period.
I would pretty much. I think you nailed it.
Right. As
I
long
think
as
the
you can
the
scale that
biggest key
down.
is just. I think the biggest key is just the spacing. Is that he needs the space to be aggressive. He can't. I mean, he can't. Honestly, he
Yeah.
probably can go against triple teams in the paint to some extent, but that's gonna be not. It's not a long term solution. I think that's something that he could maybe do for a game or two, or a few, or a handful, or a week, or a month. But eventually, that kind of wear and tear, I think, is a little bit of a. It's a bit much. So I think if we can surround him, if the Nuggets, I struggle with that. The Nuggets, my heart, they're with the team. But if the Nuggets can surround him with the appropriate amount of shooting, I think he could have, he might be on triple double watch. I don't know. We'll see. I kind of want to do a blend, maybe a quick run through of the Nuggets, the games we got on the docket for this week, and a little bit of around the association conversation. Two in-season tournament games, especially. First one being against the Clippers, and honestly, they're the team I'm just most intrigued by. It's almost like watching the Hindenburg, but yeah, the Clippers, the most are they the most anti-Nuggets team, and just in terms of how a team can be constructed and built? I mean, it might be the Suns, but they're right up there. Tomorrow night, Tuesday, 8 p.m. Mountain Time at home. They come into town. Bones comes not home, but comes back to Denver. Obviously not home. And along with Kawhi, along with PG, along with James Harden. I mean, maybe I don't know how it's gonna go. It just feels very. It feels like one of those situations that could go a bunch of different ways because they're on this sort of tailspin. That could continue. I could totally see that, but at the same time, you never know. A lot of teams get overlooked, and that's when they end up performing their best. And sometimes even trades like that, they take time to sink in. So, Rashad, I'll throw it to you. I mean, how do you feel about the Clippers project in general, and how, in this matchup in particular for the in-season tournament game, how that all fits in?
I'll say the Clippers in general. I was a big fan of how their team was constructed prior to the James Harden trade. I think they had a lot of good pieces that gelled around Russ's playmaking with the second unit and PG and Kawhi's ISO play and having as many versatile defenders as they did have. And now to trade it all away for another guy who's going to add ISO, for another guy who hasn't shown to be a completely winning system, it made me mad. It made me mad because I thought this Clippers team was going to have a pretty decent season this year, and now I'm like totally out on them. But in terms of their matchup with the Nuggets, I've said this before. I always thought that the Nuggets group was a cakewalk. I really don't think any other team really holds a candle to us in Group B. And it's going to be more of the same. The Clippers aren't that good of a defensive team. They don't guard the three-pointer really well. I think the biggest issue maybe for the Nuggets would be probably dealing with the secondary, tertiary scoring from the Clippers because they do have Norman Powell. If Bones ends up getting minutes, he's going to shoot the ball. He's going to put up some points at least. Like ultimately, Nuggets are going to win. I'm not really worried or anything. But yeah, that's all I got. Clippers just disappointment so far. So I'm really low on them at the
That's
moment.
fair. You're buying into the slide. I mostly
Yeah.
agree. But Peter, do you have any thoughts about the other team, the other LA team?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, when I first heard about this trade and it went through, it was official. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I was a little worried. I was like, wow, that's a lot of star power to put in one team. I'm kind of interested to see how this looks. And obviously it's early, but it's been awful so far, and guys, this is what we love about basketball, right? There more isn't always better. And I think the thing about
Hmm.
James Harden is that, if we're being honest about his game, like he's very elite at a few specific things. But if you're not going to give him the ball full time, that's a waste of James Harden because he's a bad defender. He's a bad transition defender. And he's whatever as a rebounder. Like if he's your point guard, it's fine. But when you're playing Russell Westbrook, Kawhi Leonard, and Paul George, you're just very like perimeter heavy and they're kind of small, and Zubac is fine, but he's like a replacement level center, and so that's like a pretty bad matchup against the Nuggets. If you got Zubac to guard Jokic, like he tries against them, but Jokic doesn't see him. And so, I'm not gonna bury them right now, but it has not been encouraging. I actually was rooting for them to beat the Grizzlies the other day just because I wanted them to like get the monkey off their back and like have like a deep breath going into the Denver game. But now that they still haven't won with Harden, I'm worried that they're going to come out and like I'm not going to say bust our ass, but like I feel like they're due for a good game at some point, right? Like these are still good basketball players.
They did get 40 piece by the Nuggets last year too, so there's that. I can see that happening.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little anxious. I'm a little anxious about this game. Obviously, the Nuggets have the best player on the court, right? Full jump. They are the more physical team. They're the larger team, and I think those things are those things are in Denver's favor. At the same time, everything you guys said is very true. The Clippers are gonna have a lot of motivation. They are, you could just say they're kind of due. Um, they can't lose every single game. We did bust their ass before. We did get that 3-1 comeback in the playoffs that one time. I mean, there's a lot of things. The Bones dynamic is going to be very interesting. I don't know if we're. I don't know if is he getting a ring ceremony. I don't know what that's gonna look like. I don't know I don't know how the fans are gonna respond. I'm not. I don't think they'll respond kindly. Uh, and I think that might even give them a little bit more. They might even throw a little bit more fuel on that fire. And at a time when the Nuggets bench is reeling a little bit, hey, I think this is going to be a close, competitive game. That's what I'll say. I don't know how it's going to go, but I do. I'm pretty sure this is going to be a close game. That's what I do feel confident in. It should be fun. I feel like this is great for Peter. If you want to, sure, go off.
Yeah, I was just thinking about one thing matchup wise in this game. It's so interesting. Sometimes we'll see coaches play a matchup that doesn't work, and we're like, why doesn't he go away from it? And it's because they don't want to kill the guy's confidence. I really hope that Michael Malone goes to Colin Gillespie before this game and says, hey, man, you can't play tonight. It's not personal. But like, I was just thinking about if he's matched up against Russell Westbrook, even Westbrook at this stage in his career, that is not going to go well because we were already watching the Houston game the other night. And, Shad, you mentioned earlier how like he just can't switch anything. He's just so little. And it's like the Clippers, Harden and Kawhi, those guys have been playing mismatch ball for years. So I kind of think this is a game where either we see Jalen Pickett or you stagger Reggie so that you always have Reggie or Jokic on the floor and you don't play another point guard because that concerns me.
KCP came into
That
the league as a
specific
point
matchup.
guard. That's also
Yeah.
something I've been thinking about. Just putting it out there because I do have that concern. Even worse, I have this like negative vision in my head of Bones cooking Colin Gillespie and then going Mile High City, baby. And that would be so terrible. I would have a terrible time.
Oh
I would
God.
not want to. And he has the like, I know he would do that. But Bones, if you're listening, please don't. I, anyway, I'm a little worried about it, but one game is one game. we don't have to dwell on it
Right.
too much. There's more to do this week. I did want to touch on the game. Peter, I think you said you're gonna earlier gonna be at this game on Friday. Pelicans Nuggets. Are you excited for it? Are you feeling the? I mean, I know Pelican Nation may not be fully in on whatever's going on in New Orleans right now, basketball wise, but um, you'll be. So, how you feeling about this one?
Yeah, I know. A lot of smaller NBA cities are kind of like weekend warriors in that they've had good crowds for the weekend. So a Friday night game, I think it'll be pretty packed in there. It'll be rocking. Defending champs coming in, and this is going to be my first time getting to see Michael Porter Jr. play live. So I'm excited for that. I wasn't able to make it to the Pels Nuggets game last year, but 2 years ago, MPJ and Jamal were out. So unfortunately, I won't get to see Jamal yet, but it'll be cool to see some Nuggets I haven't seen play before.
Yeah, that would be nice. Always nice, I should say. Predicting a win, loss, draw, close game. Andy, do you want to lay off the
Oh yeah,
predictions? I know that you're
I
open
mean
to
we
that as
win, and
well.
I've been to, is it two or three? No, I've been to two Nuggets Pels games so far, and Nuggets have won both. Actually, that's the funny thing. When I don't go, the Pels win. So good thing I'm going this week.
Okay. Well, I'm in. I'm down. I think I'm with you. I think the Nuggets win that game.
Let's do it.
Um, Before we close out, I mean, last game of the week, I believe, will be the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I just feel like this is like the least, I think this is the boring game of the week. I'm not going to lie. Not to
Didn't
say
they
that
get us
Cleveland is
twice last
not,
year?
yeah, I think they did. I just, so when I say boring, it's not to say that they're going to win comfortably or that they're locked to win comfortably. I think it's the game that's going to be least circled. Like, I see
Oh,
the
right.
Clippers game, there's a lot of focus on that. These are both, we're talking about the prior two in season tournament games. This is the
Yes.
non in season tournament game. This is the game against an Eastern Conference opponent that Denver doesn't
Yeah.
see that often. They've got a flight to catch, so to go from Denver to New Orleans to Cleveland, it's almost a trap game. I might even
Mhm.
say that where they should win. Like really, this is the game they should win. Maybe the
The
Pels game is
Cleveland
the
game.
game they should win, but I think they should
Pels
win
got a
both
lot
these
of
games.
injuries right now. Yeah. The
Um,
Pels, the Pels are not looking good right now, Ray. The Mavs had over 100 points still in the third quarter yesterday.
oh, okay, so they should win both these games, but you know, we shall see. I guess is
Yeah.
my sense of it. Rashad, I mean, when it comes to Cleveland, um, I don't know what too much else to add. I mean, when you look at the slate of games, right? How do you stack rank these in terms of where you expect the focus to be, the emphasis? When Michael Malone is going through the scouting reports and so on and so forth. Yeah, where does that weight fall? And does it? Are you worried about Cleveland? I guess relative to these other two games.
Um, Only worried about in the sense that you guys were saying, like it does feel like a pretty obvious trap game, and like Cleveland they've been pretty up and down all year. They've got two really quality wins against the Warriors though, and um, I can see them coming out really hot offensively. I'll say that. I think I can see Donovan Mitchell going off for like 30, 35 points, but that's pretty much where my thoughts on the Cleveland matchup really end because, like you guys said, we don't see them. There's
How
not really much to, you
we
know,
don't think about
hold on
them.
to. Yeah,
Honestly, no one.
like
Let's be honest. Let's be honest. No one thinks about Cleveland. I'm right there with Joakim Noah in the sense that no one goes on vacation to Cleveland. This is also my bias as a Ravens fan coming out. I don't really care for Cleveland, but
Ooh, tough one.
it's also at four Mountain Time. So is that was that
oh,
5 o'clock? their time. I think it's a little bit early as well, so it could
5
be weird.
Central,
It could.
6 Cleveland. Cleveland's in the East.
Oh, Cleveland is EST. Okay. Still a little bit early. I
Yeah.
think even just circadian rhythm wise. So I think this game is going to be funky. I can say that. I think there'll be some inconsistent. Some guys will play well. Some guys will play probably terribly. It might be some guys you don't expect. So all that is to say, this could be a fun week. This could be a very exciting, interesting, up and down week of basketball. And honestly, now that we've talked through it, I'm not going to make any predictions. I don't want to make any predictions. I'm scared. That's about that. I mean, that's about where I feel. Um, Before we close out, I mean, Rashad, it's always great having you. We really appreciate you coming on. Any parting shots? Anything you want to plug or shout out, or any new videos dropping soon?
Um, well, as we talked about before, I did drop that KCP defense breakdown, so you guys go watch that. He's been playing some really good
You should.
All-Pro defensive player of the year type defense, and I think he's been really impressive. Um, Other than that, I do have like this sort of inkling of an idea to start like a Nuggets film room day on the channel. So if I were to start that, I would probably start it at the end of this week. So I'll have more announcements on that stuff on my Twitter at AKA Shad underscore and at Dropstep Network. So that's it.
Nice, nice. Definitely check him out. I feel like I'm definitely one of those people that I love the like little details of basketball, and defense is definitely one of those things. And especially when we talk about the guys who aren't the Giannis's, not the Joel Embiid's, not
Mm-hmm.
the Wemby's of the world. So when it comes to defense, anyway. So yeah, go give him a shout out. Check out his YouTube channel. Um, Peter, do you have any parting shots for anything you've been thinking about just across the NBA?
Um,
I actually have one if you
I guess just
wanna let me
like
cook.
so. I just want to say that this is much more just of a general take, but I'm pretty
Hmm.
surprised at a lot of different teams where they are record wise, and I really shouldn't be because it's like I forget every year that the league's not the year isn't going to go exactly according to how you think it's going to go. There's always going to be surprise teams and disappointments, and I gotta wait longer to let it play out. But also, there's been some things here and there that it's like, wow, I don't know how they're going to fix that. And then there's other teams you're like, wow, I thought they're going to be way worse, and they're better. So it's just no hard iron takes there, but it's just like we don't know as much as we think we know. When teams make moves, you just kind of got to wait to see, let it play out first.
That's fair. I actually did have one thing I wanted to say before we close out. Look, I'm a DMV native. I got to do this for the people of the DMV. Um,
Oh dear.
Washington Wizards. Y'all got to get rid of some of these veterans. Like this Jordan Poole thing, I'm not feeling it. Okay, this Kyle Kuzma thing, I'm not feeling it. These guys are not committed to you. They are not loyal. They are here for themselves. Treat yourself well, respect yourself, and move on. That's all I have to say. The Wizards are already, I'm sorry, they are not the worst team in the league. They're the second worst team in the league. The Pistons are actually the worst team in the league. They've got the number one overall pick belt right now. So shout out to them. Looking for, I don't know who, but they need somebody. So all that has to say, I feel for Wes Unseld right now, Wes Unseld Jr. He's in a position where he's been tasked with getting this team to have a culture shift. I think it reflects a lot on Michael Malone. If he can be successful, I think that would be really cool. We talk about coaching trees all the time. And I just feel like the fair shake he deserves is one with players who are willing to buy in to their success. And I would like to see um, I just want to see good things for him. I just want to see good things for him. I just want to see good things for my DC friends. And yeah, that's about it. Um, yeah, unless you guys had something, if you want to pile on the
We're
Wizards,
about to
I'm
change our
open
name
to that.
from Four Corners a Nuggets podcast to Yeah, I think we're about to change our name from Four Corners of Nuggets podcast to Four Corners Nuggets fans and Wizard apologists podcast.
I'm not a Wizards apologist, okay? I'm a Nuggets fan for a reason. No one is more critical of the Wizards than me. Okay? I moved across the country to get away from being a Wizards fan. I
You
don't
left fandom, but you
identify
still hate. I love it.
exactly. Like I actively don't identify as being
Ray's
from
still
DC
dissing his ex.
to avoid the association with all DC sports. You don't put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby. Okay? I didn't think I would get that. Okay, let's go home. I appreciate everybody listening. If you made it this far, you are a real one. Yeah, check out Rashad's hopefully future film sessions and his YouTube channel. You can find me online at Rayvon Hackshaw. You can find him at the Dropstat Network on YouTube and AKA Shot on Twitter. You can find Peter at Bucketsons88 on the podcast at Four Corner Pod. So. Yeah, we'll see you later. And as always, go Nuggets.
Go Nuggets.
Ye them all.